Well, welcome back to another Waynos Fotos camera video, and the topic today is should you shoot in 4K all-eye 10-bit as compared to 1080p all-eye 10-bit. Now, when you have most cameras, apart from the very, very top cameras, there usually is some restriction related to 4K. And what that could be, it could be that the quality is less, you're maybe not getting some downsampling or whatever, or the sensor is cropped, so you've got a more telephoto image, so it doesn't match your same lens and that if you're shooting at 1080p or other cameras or other frame rates. You may be limited, you may not be able to shoot 120 frames per second in 4K, or you may have the camera overheating because a lot of the cameras overheat in 4K, or you might need more expensive media like the new CF Express cards to use all of the frame rates in 4K. So 4K has some barriers or some restrictions to moving up to that format. You also may have storage issues or editor issues depending on the computer and unit you're using to edit that media. So it does have a number of restrictions, and sometimes you need to put your hand in your pocket if you want to make that step up to 4K. Some people may see that as just a minimal cost. Some people may see that as a barrier that they're not willing to take on. So let's roll the intro and let's have a look at, is really 4K worth is the juice worth the squeeze? Okay, so what we're going to do is I've got this now in 1080p. We're shooting in 1080p, 50 frames per second, because I like to shoot in 50 frames per second. I find that you get less artifacts when you upload to social media because you're actually getting more frames in it. It seems to give a more smoother. You don't get so much, when it compresses, you don't get so much artifacts. That's just how I feel about it. A lot of people think that 24 frames is the correct frame rate and you should shoot in 24. Whatever you want to do and what frame rate you want to shoot in, that's fine. It's not such a big deal. But what we're focusing on today is the 4K at 50 frames per second compared to 1080p at 50 frames per second. Can you tell a difference, or how different is it? Is it like really obvious, or is it really take a keen eye to pick it up? So what we're going to do now is we're going to compare. So I'm shooting now in 1080p, 50 frames per second, and I'm just going to go and change the camera to 4K 50 frames per second. Now I want to keep everything the same. I was going to use two cameras, but I haven't got two lenses that are identical, and the lenses do make a difference to the picture quality. If you've got a better quality lens like a red ring, the picture is sharper, it's just better, and I don't want that to influence the results for you guys, because you need to have a real world comparison when you're comparing the two. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to switch it over to 4K so you can see the difference. Okay, so what we're shooting now we're actually in 4K, 50 frames per second all eye. Now, people may want to shoot in IPB, which is a more compressed format. I don't like to really shoot in IPB because you are actually not getting all of the information for every picture. The all eye is interlaced, so you get every line. With IPB, it's skipping some lines, or it's interpreting the picture from the previous pictures to make the picture in the future to look better. So you are not getting the full information. So that's why I like to shoot in all eye. And also it's easier on your editor. So but unfortunately, it is a bigger file information you get in your camera. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at the best. We're looking at 4K, all eye, 50 frames per second. And what do you reckon, guys? You reckon I look beautiful, nice and sexy? You can see all my little wrinkles and my little pimples. Have I shaved good today? Maybe not. Maybe not such a good looking guy. You let me know down below. Well, anyway, this is what 4K looks like. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stop it. We're going to go back to 1080p so then you can compare that again. Well, now we're back in 1080p, guys. And now this 1080p you're looking at, what I've done with this 1080p, I've sharpened it a little bit, about 20% in my editor, which is LumaFusion. And I've also upscaled at 4K. Now, The reason why I think that that's a fair comparison is because those don't cost you anything. In your editor, you can easily add a bit of sharpening, and almost all of the editors, you can render it in a upscaled format. So what we're doing is we're actually making both of those outputs 4K before we upload them to YouTube. So you let me know, guys, what you think between the two, and then you can make an informed decision yourself. You don't have to believe me that 1080p is good enough, but make sure you've got your YouTube that you're watching this on. Make sure you've got it in the highest resolution. So that'll be your 2160 at 50 FPS. You should see that come up on your settings. Select that, so then you can do a fair comparison, not looking at a more compressed image, so you can make an informed decision. Now, the reason why I don't shoot in 4K anymore, I actually used to shoot in 4K, I went back to 1080p, is because I've found that the apps don't like 4K, and they don't like the bigger size files. They don't like the megabits per second to be large. And the reason why that is because what they've done is they've made their compressors in their apps work very, very quickly. And what they do is they do a very poor job of compressing the file from, say, a 4K or a big megabits per second down to a much smaller file, because a lot of the apps are like 3 or 4 megabits per second. YouTube is 12.5. YouTube has a very good compressor, but as you are aware, if you upload it to YouTube, it takes quite a while to upload. Whilst if you upload to something like Facebook, it goes pretty quick. Instagram, over the last 6 months, have improved their quality, which is really, really good. Their Reels used to be really bad, and you had to have 1080p at a really low megabits per race to even get it to look half decent. It used to look better in the post setting than it did in Reels, but Instagram have now fixed that. So now the Reels is a lot better. And I generally upload at 1080p at around about 30 megabits per second. Now, what I would recommend you do, depending on the app, is play around. Like if you do something like Twitter or LinkedIn, then your megabits per second needs to be a lot smaller, and I would only upload at 1080p. Even if you filmed it in 4K, I'd compress it in a compressor first, or when you put it out of your editor, render it at 1080p, even though it's 4K. But other apps can tolerate 4K, like Instagram. It still looks reasonably good. So unfortunately, the apps do vary when it comes to resolution, megabits per second, and even frame rate. Like I'm filming this in 50 frames per second, looks absolutely magic in YouTube. If I upload 50 frames per second to Facebook, it'll have a slight jitter in it because it compresses it back to 30 frames per second. And this is why you need to experiment with the different apps that you like to use, that your favorite apps, to get the best quality, because the way that they compress your data is different. Okay, guys, I hope that makes some sense. If you've got any more questions, you'd like any more information, especially on the compression when you upload to social media, leave them down below and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Or there could be someone watching this video who can actually answer that question for you anyway. They may have some experience that I haven't got. So, guys, thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe and give us a like, because I'm a brand new channel and I would love to have you support the channel. That'd be really appreciated. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next vid.